Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. Today, we'll be talking about maximizing multifamily property values with energy improvement projects. Thank you all for joining. We will have time at the end for questions, but if questions come up during the presentation, please feel free to enter them into the box. You can see a little screenshot here of how to do that. You open the little arrow, type the question in the box, and then we'll address it either during or at the end of the webinar. This webinar is being recorded, and the slides as well as the recording will be posted to the Green Bank's website later today, and you'll get an email alerting you to that. Our presenters this morning are John D'Agostino, the Associate Director of Multifamily Housing Programs here at the Green Bank, and Brian Sullivan, President of Emerald Consulting, LLC. They will walk you through the slides going forward. I'm going to turn it over to them now.
Morning, everybody. You've got Brian Sullivan here. I serve as a consultant to the Connecticut Green Bank, as well as Capital for Change, which is the primary lender of one of the programs we're going to be talking today. In a former life, this is important because it's going to bear on some of the deals we're going to talk about today. I was in charge of multifamily lending for Capital with the development of along the way. So that's just for context. When we're talking about deals in the multifamily affordable space, it's important to lay out our definitions. So in terms of multifamily, what kind of units and projects are we talking? That includes and market rate, private and nonprofit owners, public housing authorities, senior assisted living communities, units in the property. We can offer a loan for it should the rest of the underwriting criteria be met. In addition, if you have a set of properties that are less than 5+ units that are under a single ownership entity or under a single deed, we can aggregate those 1 or 2 unit properties to make a 5+ unit project that would qualify for these loans. So we're trying to make these loans. We're trying to find a way to help you qualify. The other definition that's important is affordable. Our definition of affordable is related to the naturally occurring affordability methodology. This is a rent-based affordability qualification as opposed to an income-based affordability qualification. For these programs, at least 60% of the property's units must offer rents that are affordable to tenants earning less than 80% of area median income. So again, it's rent-based and not income-based, and that makes a big difference. Affordable rents assume that less than 30% of the household income is spent on housing costs. And the affordable rent figures, this is important as well, include all utility costs. So when we say qualifying rent, that's the actual rent payments made, plus any utility costs paid by the tenants. Those are all for rental properties. For condos and co-ops, where the tenants own the units, we consider the total housing costs rather than the rents. So total housing costs are mortgage, insurance, taxes, utilities, and association fees. We can go to the next one already. And what are the eligible efficiency and renewable improvements that we can finance with these products? Heating and cooling systems, hot water systems, building envelope, lighting and solar PV, solar. Another type of improvement would be combined heat and power. And then conversion from oil or electric to gas. Those usually generate pretty substantial savings. And then for the programs, we can also finance qualified health and safety measures that don't directly impact it. But if you have substantial energy savings in one of these deals, you can also include these costs. We tend to make these as broad as possible. So we have financed everything from intercom systems to sidewalks to driveways to roof repairs under that very broad category of qualified health and safety measures. I'm going to turn it over to John now to talk through some of the program offerings.
Thanks, Brian. So at a high level, the Green Bank's
program offerings, we divide them in the multifamily sector into what we call pre-development and term financing programs and or products. So on the pre-development front, this would be anything that is involved in your project up until the point where you are looking to perform construction. So this can be anything from what we call opportunity assessment to investment, ASHRAE level 2 investment grade audits, design work, green charrettes, and the like. So what we're looking at in the pre-development sector in many cases, especially in the income eligible arena, is a lot of projects don't get started, or they don't know where to start. They don't know to whom to turn in order to avail themselves of resources to help them evaluate their opportunity and then, design a project that will save them money in the long run based on that opportunity. So in terms of the pre-development challenges that exist in the sector that the Green Bank is treating as, first and foremost, does my property have an opportunity to make energy and dollar saving improvements? Like, is there even an opportunity here? A lot of folks, I get a lot of phone calls when people say, like, I want to do something, I don't know what I want to do, or I know, my windows are leaky and my insulation is sagging, but like I don't know where to start with that project. So that's kind of the most basic question that folks ask. The second level would be, okay, I know there's an opportunity. What is the magnitude of that opportunity? How much energy, how many dollars can I save on an annual basis if I were to pursue a given project? Kind of optimizing that second level, what's the project scope that offers me the highest ROI on my time and my investment? Frequently when folks are designing projects, they're being provided with a suite of options, that some of which are higher priority and offer a higher ROI. And it's kind of a question of, how far down the rabbit hole, what improvements do you want to make in order to squeeze all the juice out of your energy saving opportunity with your property? And then the question is, and this leads a little bit into the term financing or the implementation, but in the absence of having sufficient reserves, how do I pay for all of this evaluation, auditing and design work? So the Green Bank's approach to this in providing solutions, first and foremost, we're here as a financial intermediary to de-risk the pre-development process, the assessment process. The way we do this is by offering various approaches to the pre-development market. So first and foremost, we decrease the upfront cost of whether it's assessments, audits, or green design work. The Green Bank's programs operate by offering 75% loan for work at any given stage with a 25% copay by the property owner, make sure they have skin in the game. At various stages in this process, these loans are considered forgivable loans. So the Green Bank is loaning a certain amount of funds at a given stage. If in proceeding through either a first stage or a second stage in a process, maybe you have a walkthrough done of your property, and in doing so, your consulting vendor or engineer says, well, there's really not that much more to be done. You've already done a certain suite of improvements in the past. There's really not much opportunity here. The Green Bank is not going to, seek to recoup its costs because you took the risk in having your property evaluated. So that 75% that would be loaned by the Green Bank for that pre-development work could be forgiven. It's part of the loan program. And then down at the bottom, providing standardized and customized pathways for different levels of familiarity and sophistication. The goal here is, we have different levels of sophistication in the market. We have some folks who they have vendors with whom they've worked for years. They've executed energy improvement projects in the past. They have vendors with whom they would prefer to work. That's fine. We provide one pathway for those sorts of folks. We have another pathway for folks who, it's that phone call of, I want to do something, I don't know where to turn. We have a partnership with a not-for-profit technical service advisor who acts as an owner's representative and also as a Green Bank's representative in order to not sell the property owner, specific service or product, but to really evaluate, okay, what is the best path forward in terms of implementing a potential project. So the two flavors of the pre-development loan programs to which I'm referring, up top, the Navigator loan program, and below, the Sherpa program. So the top, the Navigator program, is that custom bespoke loan program where this tends to be a more sophisticated property owner. They tend to have a specific scope of work for which they're seeking financing. In the past, this has typically been either energy audits or specific design work. These projects tend to be larger because, you know, someone already kind of knows they're moving forward, so they're taking out a loan for some more advanced and sophisticated work. So it's really the client who's managing this process. They're the one who's going out and identifying their vendor. They're the ones who are defining the scope of work for the pre-development services. The Sherpa program below, this is the program that the Green Bank has established. We put out an RFP several years back for a credit enhancement product offering. New Ecology came in with basically a standardized process, a standardized fee schedule that would help take folks from I don't know what to do to having, you know, a holistic project design in hand through a stepwise process that holds their hand throughout that process. So the specific terms of each of these respective programs, with the Navigator program, for each of these programs, they look very similar on the back end for me. For affordable properties, their rates of 1.99% for market rate projects, they're 3.99%. Both of these programs, the loan terms are 24 months or upon project funding, whichever is sooner. We have some properties that take out a loan for 12 months. You know, the loan term is 24 months, but they end up closing on their project financing, or they're paying for their project out of reserves within the year or even 6 months. So once that permanent funding moves forward, when you're moving forward with the energy improvements that are informed by either of these programs, that's basically the trigger for us to invoice for repayment. Both of them operate with a 25% copay, as I mentioned, 75% loan. What I will say with the Sherpa loan program down below, that first stage, the opportunity assessment phase, there's no underwrite that's required to be performed prior to the walkthrough of the property. The goal here is to try to get folks started as quickly as possible and get them, you know, aware of their opportunity. Otherwise, for subsequent stages of the Sherpa loan program and any of the stages for the Navigator loan program, there is a formal underwrite that's conducted based on the last 2 years of financial statements, audited tax returns, and you know, there's a formal loan that's taken out, and then once that's approved, then you can go ahead with the work. And what I will say additionally on the pre-development loan program is this behaves as a line of credit, so it's not as though we're just cutting you a check up front. We're basically, when you have invoice for the work, you know, once you have your loan docs fully executed, we'll cut you a check for those invoices as they come in, so you're only drawing down the amount of money that you need at any given phase during your pre-development process. The other point to add here is the more comprehensive that the energy-related improvements are related to your project, the more money we're able to justify. So in that, our charge at the Green Bank is to catalyze energy-related improvements. We're unable to provide financing for kind of standard capital improvements, whether it's surveying or permits and the like. But if you're doing projects that are net zero energy or passive house, kind of the more that energy is a pervasive aspect of the evaluation and the design work, the more funds we're able to justify under these programs. So on the project implementation front, there's a number of challenges out there in the market that we found, especially specifically in the income eligible sector. First and foremost is, you know, a lot of these properties, they operate on fairly thin margins. There aren't necessarily sufficient reserves to pay for a project out of pocket. The loan rates that are available through commercial lenders are prohibitively high, or the terms are prohibitively short. There may be restrictions that lenders have on additional specifically secured debt. So I'll talk a little bit when we get to the next slide about the Green Bank secured lending product, CPACE, which we have found is not as effective a tool in this market. As Brian mentioned earlier, the need to remediate health and safety issues prior to the project. We've run into a number of projects that have asbestos, mold, knob and tube wiring, lead. You may have trees that need to be removed if you're doing a solar project. Any sort of prohibitive issue that keeps a project from moving forward, we make sure that we have, so that can be a part of some of our financing products. It can also be, we have a distinct product to finance that sort of work at low interest rates as well. And then finally, various financing products can be used as finish line or mezzanine debt in a capital stack, especially for new construction when there's insufficient funds that are available. The way that we underwrite our loan products enhances the cash flow of a property and allows for that additional debt to be taken on. So the solutions approach that the Green Bank has designed, we have varying financial tools, unsecured and off-balance sheet term financing products for where secured debt is not available. The rates that are available through these products, we use a variety of credit enhancements to de-risk that from a lender perspective, which allows the consumer to enjoy lower rates than they would otherwise from a commercial lender. The improvements in the financing is repaid out of the energy savings. So when we talk about specific products in a second, you'll see that the primary means by which our financing products are underwritten is based on the energy savings of a project. So we're looking for projects that when they're repaying their loans, the cost of the improvements or the debt service as a whole, which includes the improvements and the interest, is less than the amount of energy that's being saved in the dollar value. Therefore, we have confidence that it's improving the cash flow of the property and therefore the long-term valuation of the property as well. I mentioned the dedicated low-interest health and safety financing, and I've already referred to the term financing as finish line debt. So in terms of the financing that the Green Bank offers, that top line square may be especially limey for those of you viewing on your computer. So this is our unsecured loan product. This is the product that is offered in conjunction and actually by Capital for Change. They're the primary administrators of this program. The Green Bank is providing a credit enhancement to support this offering. It's unsecured. Its terms out to 20 years. Brian, you can go as short as 6 years?
I think we've done a 6 year.
Yeah. Okay, so 6 to 20 years. They're looking for an energy savings coverage ratio of 1.3 or greater for energy efficiency projects, 1.1 or greater for solar projects. The next box down, solar. This is the Green Bank Solar Power Purchase Agreement offering. So this is to fund solely solar projects. This is an off-balance sheet solution. It's basically like selecting a different electric generation supplier on your electric bill, except rather than doing that, you have a solar PV system that is on the roof, or maybe it's a ground mount on your property. That you're basically the Green Bank is funding for the installation of that project. They own the system, and they're selling you the electricity from that system at a rate that is lower than what you would be otherwise paying either from your utility provider or through an independent generator. What I will say, just touching on really quickly on the solar front, the low-hanging fruit here is if you have a property that's master metered for electricity, or you have a very, very large common area. The Green Bank's typically looking for projects that are 50 kilowatts in size or larger. We get a lot of folks who want to do solar. They have smaller tenant-paid electric properties, which necessitates a pure docket for sub-metering, which comes with its own bureaucratic and legal costs. And so
Most of what we've done, I think we've done 30 solar projects in the multifamily sector to date. Those have predominantly been, 90%, 95% have been master meter for electricity. So that's ask yourself, is my property master meter for electricity? If yes, then that's a great place to start. CPACE, this is the Green Bank's Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. This is a secured financing vehicle whereby the Green Bank is funding for whatever suite of improvements where the energy savings exceed the debt service. The cost of those improvements is repaid on the property tax bill. So there's actually a first position lien that's filed on the property with the municipality. As you pay your property taxes back, part of that payment is, the cost of the improvement that's being financed. So it consolidates that payment so you don't have a separate bill. Again, the purpose here is that the energy savings outweigh the debt service such that the operations of the property improve, the cash flow improves, and the long-term valuation improves. And then finally, catalyst financing. This is kind of an umbrella term that we use for a handful of financing products. Specifically, the one that we could call out is the Energized CET Health and Safety Revolving Loan Fund. This is supported by a loan from the State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, and it's specifically to remediate health and safety related issues with properties in order to get them to their energy project. A lot of folks, have challenges even getting started with a project, so we wanted to make sure to put, a product on the market that allows them to remediate that work at low interest rates. So specific terms on each of these products, I've already mentioned Lime. I think it says 6 to 6.99, right? We changed that. Is that?
It says 6 to 6.75, but we've actually increased the upper limit to 6.99. Still haven't done a loan higher than 6.5 in reality.
Okay. So LIME stands for Low Income Multifamily Energy Loan. So we're looking for affordable multifamily project. This can be warranted either by having specific units dedicated to as low income units by the incomes of the residents within the units, or also by whether it exists in a Department of Housing and Urban Development qualified census tract. Any other underwriting that you want to touch on, Brian?
Yeah, it's pretty hard to not have an affordable rental property given the constraints that we have. Basically, anything that isn't luxury housing in one of the urban areas can qualify under our affordability restrictions. It's a very important distinction between that methodology for qualifying for affordable as opposed to some of the other state agencies or organizations because they use an income-only qualification standard. This is much more broad, and a lot of properties that you wouldn't think are quote-unquote income eligible or affordable by one of those other standards will qualify under the LIME program because of the natural affordability approach.
That's a great clarification. For solar, the term here, it's a 20-year power purchase agreement. There are fixed and escalating options available. We're not going to go forward. We're legally not allowed to implement a solar power purchase agreement unless the rate that's being provided is less than a given current electric rate. There's also options to purchase a system at the end of 5 years and every year thereafter. There's also the option to extend the term for an additional 5 years. There's 2 5-year extensions that can be appended to the end of that PPA term. The question that always comes up is what happens at the end of 20 years? What if, I don't want the system or what's going to happen? So the short answer is either the Green Bank will pay to have the system removed if you no longer want the system on your property, or the hope is that if the system is on there and it's still generating electricity, that the Green Bank and you as a property owner will come to a negotiated agreement over some sale price for the system in order to keep that system on there. It's in the Green Bank's interest to have a system that is continue to generate electricity, but the IRS prohibits us from dictating a specific sale price 20 years prior to that transaction occurring. CPACE, I touched on. I don't want the CPACE team to come have my head, but I believe the interest rates currently are 5 3/4 to 7 1/4. terms from 5 to 25 years. The energy savings coverage ratio here is lower because it is a secured loan product. And the process there is a little bit longer because you do have to get the lien filed through the municipality. The turnaround for Lime is fairly quick relative to CPACE, but it's a higher energy savings coverage ratio threshold as part of the underwrite. Finally, the catalyst financing, again, affordable multifamily projects, 3% range for interest. We've gone lower, we've gone higher. The terms go out to 20 years, and it's here to address health and safety related issues that are prohibitive to an energy project proceeding forward.
So guys, one question that came in on this.
Yes.
The 75% loan of upfront pre-development costs, is it forgiven regardless of whether the prospective client goes forward or not?
No. So the goal here is to de-risk the process. So if you have a certain scope of work done and the client has paid 25%, the green bank has loaned 75%, and the result of that work comes back saying, yes, there is opportunity here, there are real savings to be had, you should absolutely move forward with this suite of improvements. The expectation is that you will, right? If there's a $20 bill on the ground, the hope is that you're going to pick it up. If you decide not to move forward, you can petition for forgiveness, and so that's the rub. If you decide, no, I don't want to pick the $20 up, then you would still be on the hook to do so. If the pre-development work comes back and says, you know what, there's really not an opportunity here, I think you've done everything that you can do, there's no work to be done. In that case, you as a property owner would petition for forgiveness, and the green bank would say, yes, thank you for taking the risk and the opportunity to evaluate your property. In that there's no more to be done here, we would strongly consider forgiving that loan. I'll turn it back over to Brian, talk a little bit about project flow, and then this will segue into case study examples.
Thank you, John. Okay, so here's the basic project flow for an energy efficiency loan. The pre-development loan closes, or would need to close, before the energy audit, savings assessment, project scope, cost finalized, in order to have those costs qualify for those pre-development loans. So if you go through an energy audit before you talk to the green bank, that's not a cost that's going to be able to be included in the pre-development scope of work. So it's basically two scopes of work: the pre-development work that gets you to a project scope, and then the actual project scope for the implementation of those measures. Very important step, the fourth dot down in blue section, utility incentives committed. What you want to do, because free money is better than a loan and it's better than reserves, is to take that scope of work and send it to our partners at the utility companies. They're going to issue, hopefully, a generous package that includes rebates, which are going to buy down the cost of those improvements, and also provide me, or whoever's underwriting this deal, with a very important set of metrics. And the output of that process is called a letter of agreement. And the letter of agreement from the utility companies will give you not only those rebates in a contract form, but also provide the underwriter of the energy efficiency deal with a very conservative estimate of what the actual savings are going to be in terms of kilowatt hours, CCFs of natural gas, etc. Combined with the actual energy bills from the property, that allows the underwriter to calculate what those energy savings are going to be. And again, it's a very conservative methodology used by the utility companies. So as a lender, you can be sure that you're using basically the lowest possible projected savings in your underwriting, which makes the loan more secure. If I get the letter of agreement, or the underwriter gets the letter of agreement, and the savings are not sufficient to cover the full cost of the project, we may suggest a third-party savings review. It's important to get an independent third-party analysis of what the actual savings are going to be. One of the additional saving sources that comes from an energy efficiency deal is in operations and maintenance costs. We've seen deals where there's a $20,000 insurance premium reduction. That's one example, because you had leaky roofs and leaky boilers beforehand. You get a prospective quote from the insurance company that says, oh yeah, this property is much less risky now from our perspective, so you're going to save $20,000 next year on your premiums. That's just one example of the types of operations and maintenance savings that can be included. Once you have the scope of work, you've got the savings, you select the term financing program. Usually it's Lime in the space that we're talking about, unless it's solar, in which case it's the Green Bank Solar PPA program. And then the Catalyst Fund can come in and buy down the cost of that loan. And Green Bank has some other sources if we need to get the project over the finish line too. You establish your loan terms. You close on term financing. You actually do the work. And then, very importantly, once the work has been completed and the property is hypothetically running at a much higher rate of efficiency, we're going to monitor and verify those savings, number one, so that we can check to see how our projections are faring out in the real world. Number two, to make sure that the property owner is aware of how much they're saving and sees the value in the loan that they took out from the Green Bank. So, case study. This was the very first Lime loan that we ever did. It was actually my very first loan as a lender as well. The Lime loan did not exist as a program, so we just got basically a cold call from a developer, and they had this problem that they needed to solve. 120 units, 10 buildings, 2 stories, 100,000 square feet, and what they wanted to do was replace their inefficient oil-fired heating and hot water equipment with efficient gas equipment, so boilers and hot water heaters. They had already applied to the utility company. They had gotten about $44,000 in contracted rebates that were going to buy down that cost of $420,000 total. They were willing to contribute $125,000 in reserves, which left a gap cost of $250,000. So Capital for Change took a look at this. They got 3 different independent analyses about what the oil to gas conversion would save the property. Took the lowest of those, so $70,000 is what they were using for a projected savings number. Decided on a 9-year term and saw that $250,000 over 9 years at 6% was going to be about $36,000 in annual payments. And that was a projected debt service coverage ratio of 1.94. So almost double what the loan payments are going to be is what the property was going to save. We said, all right, this looks pretty good. You know, most of our commercial mortgages have a debt service coverage ratio of 1.2 or so. So even though we're not going to take a security interest or, you know, a second lien on this property, we feel pretty confident that this loan can be successfully repaid. Should also add that this property was mortgaged with a CHFA first, so Connecticut Housing Finance Authority, and because of the restrictions of that organization's first mortgages, they couldn't do a PACE loan. So there's no opportunity in a CHFA finance property to have a first lien position loan that's above the CHFA loan. So we had to look at this as a subordinate position, in this case, a completely unsecured position. Rudy? So what happened? We're guessing that there's going to be $70,000, and that's a very educated guess, and it's the most conservative guess that we had. And we're guessing that there are going to be free cash flows of $34,000 in the first year, $300,000 over the 9-year term. What happened in real life? They saved $75,000 in year 1 post conversion, and in addition to the energy costs of switching from oil to gas, they also saved $7,500 in maintenance from the average of the last 2 years. So the total net operating income increase of $82,500, which resulted in $46,388 in free cash flows to the property, net of debt service. So this property owner made $46,000 the first year after the conversion. So there's no repayment period where you're just paying back what you put out in reserves. You're making positive cash flows in the first year by using financing as opposed to reserves. And then what happened? Well, they sold the property 2 years after the conversion. And as part of the sale, they used an income-based valuation. They used a cap rate of 5.7% to figure out what the property should be sold for. So what was that sleeve of NOI worth in the end? So take $82,500, that's the energy savings, divided by the effective cap rate, is $1.45 million. So they took out a $250,000 loan from Capital for Change. They put $125,000 in reserves in, and the payoff 2 years later was $1.45 million. Rudy? So Capital for Change saw that they had a good product here, and it's been offered ever since in conjunction with the Connecticut Green Bank. The product is an unsecured loan, which means that it's unsecured with respect to the real estate. We don't require a second mortgage. We'll take what we can get, to be honest. So we'll take corporate guarantees, we'll take personal guarantees, we'll take anything that increases the security of the loan. But the important thing is you don't need a priority lien product that is unavailable because of Chapel or HUD financing or a number of other lenders who are uncomfortable with having another interest that's superior to theirs. We use the projected savings as the payback mechanism. Minimum debt service coverage ratio of 1.3 for energy efficiency, 1.1 for solar. We can incorporate anything that's tangible in terms of savings projections into the calculations, so maintenance, insurance, et cetera. Again, this project, the first Lime loan, $400,000 in debt and equity, and they had a profit of $1 million 2 years later. In general, energy efficiency investments in your property can generate short-term net revenues. Remember, they were making $46,000 in cash as well while they held it, and then a long-term property valuation that's realized on the sale of the property. Go ahead, Rudy. Really quickly, Belfonti Company is one of our best customers. They've done almost $6 million of energy efficiency projects for their multifamily portfolio. They've done 3 Lime loans. And Rudy, next slide. The most recent one that we have after figures for is Heritage Commons, $960,000 loan, 20-year term, 5.5% interest rate. We projected a 1.36 debt service coverage ratio. I believe that the total projected savings were $98,000 in the underwrite. As you can see here, we're getting better, more accurate with respect to our underwriting. You look at the before and after picture, they saved $96,738, and again, we had projected $98. We're going to take a look at the most recent numbers when we get a chance and see if that's shifted much from the baseline. But these savings are real. They are being realized by our customers, and our customers are reaping the benefits of these projects. We're right up against time, but I would like to take questions if there are any. Rudy, did we get any during the course of the webinar?
One thing, I just want to chip in two quick points. So just because I didn't mention this, and it was supposed to be the intent of my part of the presentation, was the pre-development and the term financing products are meant to work in concert. So one thing that wasn't highlighted was your accrued pre-development costs may be rolled into your term financing. So if you're accruing, you do a Navigator, you do a Sherpa loan program, you may go through one stage or multiple stages, and there's some fixed amount of pre-development cost, recognizing that, a property doesn't necessarily have the reserves at a given time to pay back those pre-development costs, but they'll be implementing a project that frees up this cash flow. If you're implementing a project and the project cost is $100,000, a few $1,000s is marginal, and you're paying that accrued obligation back over the life of your Lime loan. So that's something that I always neglect to flag. I just wanted to flag that. The other piece I wanted to flag is, especially for folks who are at like a housing authority, we've been really lucky to have some great people over at CHAFA where we've done campaigns for solar power purchase agreements, and I think we've done 18 solar PPAs with housing authorities to date, or at least separate projects. And so those are, there are long time horizons. We recognize that folks at housing authorities, have limited bandwidth. So know that, we're a resource. We're here to hold a lot of the technical challenges on our end, and mostly what we're looking for are champions there. So we've done programmatic offerings with that in the past, and it's been a wonderful partnership. So I just wanted to flag that as well.
So one question that came in: does a property with 2 units qualify for your programs? And also, can you batch a few properties that are owned by one owner under one loan?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And if it's a 2-unit standalone property owned by a single-purpose LLC, that's not going to qualify. But if you have 3 2-units, now you're above, you're in that 5+ zone. And if they're under, if they're owned by the same entity, we can aggregate those 3 2-units and make a Lime-worthy deal out of it. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that goes across all of our products. We can do scattered site projects so long as in aggregate we're not going to do multiple loan agreements so long as there's one individual or property owner with whom the agreement is being made. Yes.
There was a question also about the catalyst financing. What is the source of funding for that? Where's that coming from? How does that work?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the catalyst financing, the primary source is it's a low interest loan from the State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, primarily for health and safety related improvements. We have in the past done, we've created a program in-house at the Green Bank where we've done that financing on our own balance sheet. We developed the latter program, and in doing so, the State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection saw that there was an opportunity for them to, support us in that regard. So right now we have, I think, still, close to $1.5 million that can go out the door from that deep funds, and so that's a primary resource for that money.
No other questions. One thing I would say in closing, if you want to improve,
another question did just.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Actually, hold on one sec.
Rudy got another one.
One just popped up here. Are you working with nonprofit developers as partners to market to local landlords or resident owners?
The broad answer is always yes. It's challenging given that the Green Bank is a quasi-government agency with kind of limited staff and limited resources. We're happy to engage folks in the community, whether that's property owners themselves, not-for-profits. We have, we do kind of, between webinars and road shows and meetings, we try and create as many touch points as possible. So when folks, have a property that might be of interest, wherever they are in their long-term development strategy of implementing energy improvements, they know to call us, and then we can help direct them. So, I wouldn't say we have a strong partnership with the Connecticut Housing Coalition, with community development organizations throughout the state, but we can always take on more. I'm always happy to talk to more folks.
And I was going to say, just generally, give us a call. We'll try to make it work. There is no cookie cutter perfect project for any of these programs, and we're used to one-offs, and we're happy to work with you and figure out what your property's needs are and try to find a good deal for you. Nobody wants to talk about that.
So if there are any other last-minute questions, I think we'll wrap it up here.
Yep. And thank you, everybody. See some familiar names on the list, and thank you for listening to us again. If this is your first time, we hope that you're happy with what you heard, and we hope that we hear from you soon. We're here to help.